Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion.
Hi, no, this is not Steve from Rock and Metal Invasion. This is his twin brother, Simon. And I'm here to tell you about Rock and Metal Invasion merch. Yes, believe it or not, Rock and Metal Invasion has merchandise that you can buy. The only thing is, I think Rock and Metal Invasion sucks. And I don't know why anyone would want to buy anything that has anything to do with that channel. But if you do, the link is in the description. One thing that's good about Rock and Metal Invasion merchandise is they sell cups like this, and they're really good to vomit in after you watch one of their episodes. Cheers. Winger sucks. Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I am looking at the Bulletboys. So the Bulletboys are a band, American hard rock band, who in 1988 released their debut album, self-titled. But before that, there's a bit of history about the band, and I'll go over that before I start talking about their albums. They've got a lot of albums, so they've actually, they're probably most well known for the first 3 albums that they released on Warner Brothers. But they then did carry on and release some more albums after that, quite a few, but probably albums that are lesser known to most people. They're most famous, of course, for that debut album. It peaked at number 34 on the album charts and eventually went gold. So who is in Bulletboys? Well, we've got Mark Turin on vocals. You've got Lonnie Vincent on bass. You've got Mick Sweeter on lead guitar. And you've got Jimmy Deanda on drums. And, you know, Mark and Lonnie are currently still in the band, but, you know, Mark's been the only real consistent person in the band from the start, and the rest of the other guys have kind of come in and out. Mick and Jimmy really left pretty much after the 3rd album. They came back in 2011, I think it was, just for a short little tour. It didn't really work out. Then they reunited again in 2019. Again, a little bit of a tour. Things maybe looking a bit more hopeful then, but then again, it didn't work out. You know, so, and then in between that, you know, Mark's really just been trying to keep the band as active as possible. So let's have a look at how this band sort of started up. Originally, the band actually formed from King Cobra. So this is King Cobra here. This is their first album. And you can see Mick Sweeter there. He's fairly unrecognizable from how he looks in Bulletboys. The thing with King Cobra, what Carmen Appice wanted was he wanted everyone to have blonde hair, except for him. That was the look. So that's why Mick's got the blonde hair there, which he changes when he goes to Bulletboys. Lonnie Vincent is also in this band, but I don't know if he actually played on anything, because looking at the credits, I don't see his name. But yeah, Mick is on this one here. Here he is on their 2nd album. And also, you know, one thing that's a little bit less known is King Cobra also contributed to the Black Roses soundtrack. And there's also a band called Black Roses, which is essentially King Cobra. And you can see that in the credits here, that Mick Sweeter has a songwriting credit for some of the songs. I think by this time, King Cobra is sort of falling apart a little bit. You know, interestingly enough, Mark Turin also is in King Cobra for a very short period of time. And they even demo a song called Kissin' Kitty, which ends up, you know, so it's demoed as a King Cobra song, but then ends up being a Bulletboys song. Anyway, so I guess the 3 of them sort of meet up via King Cobra, and then they get Jimmy in as their drummer and form the Bulletboys. Interesting thing too, though, about Mark is he had a bit of a history as well, prior even to King Cobra. So he's actually a really good guitar player. So something that maybe some people might not know. Obviously, he's the front man, he's the vocalist, but he even at one point auditioned when Randy Rhoads passed away, and there were auditions for Ozzy Osbourne's new guitarist. He auditioned for that. So yeah, he's quite a good guitar player as well. He also played with Rat for a very I don't know how long, probably a very short period of time. But interestingly enough, he does his name. If you have a look at the latest song that Rat has just released, it's not a new recording; it's an old one. Reach for the Sky. You'll see that Mark Turin has a writing credit on that one. So that new song, that unreleased song that's just been released, which is actually, quite an old song, was also co-written by Mark Turin. One other thing that, well, he was in a band. I don't have this, but he was in a band called Cagney and the Dirty Rats, and they released an album in 1983 on Motown. I don't have that, but there's kind of a bit of R&B. There's a bit of rock in there. There's a music video which is quite entertaining to check out called I think it's called Dirty Rat. Check that out. But yeah, it's nothing like the Bulletboys. So he'd been on a sort of a major label album before the Bulletboys. But apart from that, there's some rumors that he contributes vocals to. Now this is a great soundtrack. This is Rocky IV, and there's a song on here called "The Sweetest Victory." It's a really good song, and it's artist's touch. Now, this is not the Mark Mangold band, and yeah, it's supposedly Mark Turin on vocals. It doesn't really sound like him, but if you look at the end credits for the movie, he is credited in there. Yeah, interesting because he sounds a lot. That song sounds a lot like a Journey song, and you wouldn't say Mark Turin is a Steve Perry sound-alike, even though he has been on a Journey tribute album. But anyway, so yeah, and that's actually a good song. So check that out if you haven't checked out the Rocky soundtrack or the song "The Sweetest Victory" by The Touch. It's not bad, but like I say, it doesn't sound like the Bulletboys. More like it sounds like a Journey song, but it's pretty good. Yeah, so that was sort of his experience prior to hooking up with the guys, Lonnie and Mick. And they then get Jimmy in and form the Bulletboys. Yeah, so let's have a look at this album. So this is the debut album. Now, one thing I actually noticed about this album is the album art. So this is actually pretty cool, I think, because this album art is actually done by a guy called Harold Eugene Edgerton, and he is famous for, well, he's an electrical engineer, but he's also famous for high-speed photography techniques. And this is called 30 bullet piercing an apple. That's what it's called. I don't think he really necessarily considered himself an artist, but he was able to produce some amazing visual images using the techniques that he was able to create. And so this picture was used for their album cover, and I think it's really cool. Of course, obviously matching up with the name of the band being called Bulletboys. Interestingly enough, too, this is not the only album or the first album that had this picture as their album cover. Now, I don't have it, but if you check out, I think he's a jazz guy, but if you check out David Newman and his album Mr. Fathead, it's released in 1976, and like I said, I think it's a jazz album. It has the same album cover. So Bulletboys actually weren't the first to do it, but this is probably the most famous, album cover with this image on it. So and actually the artist or the engineer Harold Eugene Egerton, he also did the Golden Earring album. It has I don't have that album, but it's got like a bullet going through some cards. Yeah, he did that one. And another one I do have, this is Chevelle, Wonder What's Next. So this is another one of his photos. This is all the way from like 1933. And I think it's some. I never realized this until quite recently. This is glass hitting the ground and then milk spilling out of it. But yeah, so understandably interesting images. So he's been used for a few album covers. Anyway, so Bulletboys, the debut album, like I said, it went gold. It was a successful album. A lot of people compared, especially Mark and his vocal style, to David Lee Roth. So this was almost sold a little bit as, because this is when this comes out, I think it's about 1988. And, there'll be some people who are sort of missing the David Lee Roth Van Halen. So if you were missing David Lee Roth Van Halen, you can get your fix by checking out the new Bulletboys album, this Bulletboys album. And of course, it's produced by Ted Templeman as well. So there's that Van Halen link. And yeah, I can definitely hear that. But this is my favorite Bulletboys album. We've got Smooth Up In You, which was one of the singles. That's a great song. Hard as a Rock, opening up the album, is really good. For me, the best songs are actually all on side 2. The Kissin' Kitty, which was originally a King Cobra song. I really like that one. That's probably my favorite song on the album. But yeah, Badlands, Hell on My Heels, that's really good. Crank Me Up, F9, really good. I'm not actually a big fan of Shoot the Preacher Down or For the Love of Money, which was a cover of an OJ song. I think that was a music video for that as well. There's also actually a music video for F9, which I think a lot of people don't know about. I don't know if that got played on MTV. It was probably the third music video. But if you get, there was a music video that was released that was like a video cassette. And on it, it had 3 music videos from this album, and F9 was one of them, and had some interviews with the band and that sort of thing. So, yeah, so there's a music video for F9, and yeah, so that's the first album. And, they did quite a bit of touring, had a lot of success, and then basically, I guess, Ted Templeman comes in again. They said we can just repeat that success again. Now, by this time, of course, we're getting into the 90s, so this is 1991. Yeah, so 1991 when this one comes out, Freak Show. I love the album art. I think that's really cool. So again, that's 2 albums in a row with, I think, really quite good album art. But for me, this is not such a good album. And I was having a listen to it again today just to check. Maybe I just really need to give it another spin just to be sure that I'm not missing some songs on here that maybe grabbed me more than I thought. But it's just for me. That first album is, I play it now and still really love it. This one, there's some good songs on it, but not nearly as many good songs as the first one. I do like Good Girl. That's great. I really love that song. Do Me Raw, it's okay. Hang On St. Christopher, which was a single. It's okay. Hell Yeah, not bad opener. THC Groove, yeah. But for me, it doesn't do it anywhere near as much as the first album. So I don't play this a lot. But like I say, I really love the first album. But it's still the same lineup. And while I don't think this is as successful as the first one, they actually stay together. And one of the few bands from that sort of hair metal period who actually managed to stay together and release an album past sort of 1992. So this is Zaza that comes out in 1993. Now, I don't have a vinyl of it. In fact, I don't even have a CD of it, but I've got a cassette of it. And now for me, again, not as good. There's some okay songs on here, but really my only sort of song that I really like is 1-800 Goodbye. I really like that one. And again, there's some good songs on here, but the fact that it's not on vinyl is a little bit annoying. And I do remember buying it back in the day and going, oh yeah, no, it's not that great, is it? So I guess for me, it's always been about trying to, hopefully the band getting back to the songs or the quality of songs that they had on that first album, that at least for me, was what I liked. And after that first album, never really quite able to get there. Like I said, after that third album, they basically the band seemed to split, although Mark still kept the band going, but with different band members. So so you've got Lonnie Vincent still in the band and Mark still in the band, but Mick and Jimmy have left the band. And by 1995, they're releasing Acid Monkey, which I don't have that. In fact, I don't have any other Bulletboys albums after the first 3 albums. Obviously, I've checked them out a little bit online and heard them from a little bit from time to time, but not really. Can't really give too much of an opinion other than just what I've sort of listened to online, and it hasn't inspired me to go off and get the albums. Now, of course, up until quite recently, most of these weren't even available on vinyl. Yes, you could get them on CD, but some of them are really difficult to get on CD. For example, Acid Monkey, really difficult to get, even though, from what I've heard, it's not really worth getting. I was talking to Dan from Off the Charts today, and he showed Acid Monkey on vinyl, so I was quite surprised to see that. So it has actually been it is now available on vinyl. It's been issued on vinyl, probably I guess for the first time, remastered. I think he said that it does sound a little bit better now it's been remastered, but still not a great album. But and I've listened to it online, and yeah, it doesn't really sound like it's really not sounding like Bulletboys' first album at all now. Of course, this is 1995, so and they haven't got the big name producers or anything like that. So yeah, not so great. The Sophie, the one that is released after that, I think is a little bit better from what I've heard online. That's also been remastered recently. I don't think there's a vinyl copy of that yet, but yeah, there's actually the song Neighborhood has Sebastian Bach helping out on vocals there. It definitely sounds a lot more like what they were doing on their first sort of 2 or 3 albums. But, like I say, I really haven't given them too much more of a listen after those first 3 albums. And, at this point, too, they're having a lot of different members coming in and out. This is Bulletboys is a little bit like the band London. So the band London, which, they released a few albums, but they're kind of more known in the sort of hair metal scene for a band that's had famous people in the band, but the band not really being that famous themselves. And, Bulletboys is getting a bit like that because it's getting like guys come into the band who end up going on to sort of bigger things. So Bulletboys, they've had Jason Hook in the band, who then goes on to be in Five Finger Death Punch. They've had DJ Ashby, DJ Ashba, who's gone on to be in Guns N' Roses, Beautiful Creatures, so 6 a.m. So yeah, he's sort of had more success since then. This is after Guns N' Roses, but they even had Steven Adler playing on drums there for a while. They've had Phil Varone on drums from Skid Row. Not super. Some of them not super well known, but if you go through the list of people who've been in and out of this band, there's a few familiar names in there. So so like I said, Sophie from 2003. It's a bit quiet for a little bit, when you think about Acid Monkey 1995, Sophie in 2003. There's not another album until 2009. In between that, if you were getting those tribute albums that seem to be coming out quite a bit in the sort of early 2000s, you'll see Mark Turin's name coming up quite a bit as a vocalist. He's done a lot of tribute, been on a lot of tribute albums. So I guess that was sort of what he was doing at that time. They released 10 Cent Billionaire in 2009, and my understanding is initially that was not even going to be a Bulletboys album. It was going to be, the album was actually going to be called 10 Cent Billionaire, but then they decided, well, it's probably better. We've got more name recognition as Bulletboys, even if, Mark's the only original member in the band. There's Rocked and Ripped from 2011, which is basically a covers album, which probably, like I said, Mark had already been doing a lot of cover songs anyway for those tribute albums, so that's probably not a difficult thing to do. Elefante in 2015. I do like the song Symphony that's on that album. I do quite like that one. Otherwise, I really can't say too much. From Out of the Skies 2018, I really can't tell you too much about that one either. Now, like I said, Mick and Jimmy did come back into the band along with Lonnie in 2011 and then in 2019, but and I remember thinking when they were touring in around 2019 sort of thing with the original lineup, I was thinking, well, maybe they put out a new album, this could be good. But I think Mick, from what I've heard, really just couldn't work with Mark, and it just wasn't working out. So anyway, Ira Black, who's quite well known as a guitar player, he comes in. He's played for lots of bands, and they do release a song, and there's a music video. The song's called Holy Fuck, which is an interesting song title choice. It was okay, I guess. It was okay. It was pretty aggressive. I like the attitude. But yeah, just that one song there was really quiet. I know they did tour, and now Ira's Black has left the band, and I'm really not sure what the current lineup is and what's happening now. So Mark's still a member of the band. Lonnie's still listed as a member of the band. So, and there's a couple of other guys I'm not really familiar with now in the band. So I guess the band's still active, but yeah, it's been a while since they put out an album. And at the moment, it looks like they're remastering and re-releasing some of their older albums. So there we go. I noticed that I think there's a live album that is going to be issued on vinyl for the first time. I can't remember what it's called. Something maybe Behind the Orange Curtain or something like that. That was released back in I don't know, late 90s or something like that. I don't even think it's an original lineup recording, but yeah, so that might be coming out on vinyl. I probably wouldn't bother, to be honest with you. Not that big a fan of live albums. What I'd really like, I guess, is obviously for that original lineup to get together and try and sort of recreate something like they had from the debut album. But yeah, I don't know there's much chance of that happening. But yeah, a really solid band. Like I say, for me, that first album, which I don't even think, I don't really hear a lot of people, talking that first album up necessarily that much. In fact, for some people, the second album is even their favorite. But yeah, I've always enjoyed that first album a lot and still enjoy playing it. Some great songs on there. And yeah, well, we'll just keep watching and see what happens. But there we go. So that's a little recap there of the band Bulletboys. If you like this type of content, make sure that you hit the thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so that you can, be notified when I release new content. All right, thanks for watching. We'll catch you later.